Hey everybody, how's it going? Happy September the 2nd. I think I got that right. Yep, September the 2nd, 2020. This is the first episode of Supernatural Revisited right here on the Fandom Empire YouTube channel. Now, if you're just tuning in and you're thinking that you're going to get Halloween content, well, not the Halloween franchise content. And if you haven't tried Supernatural yet, we strongly advise you to give Supernatural a shot. 15 years of just absolutely awesomeness, great chemistry, ghost stories, mythology, horror, mystery, even some biblical things in there. For the last several months, we've been on the channel and we've been talking about what an awesome show it is, how much we love it. I know a bunch of other people have given it a shot since then. And, this has actually been a project that has been it's been in the works for a long fucking time. And finally, we're here talking Supernatural. Now, let's just go over how this works. Okay, so we are starting from the beginning. That's right, all the way at the beginning. Each episode of this, we will either be reviewing 2 episodes of Supernatural, where we'll review it, recap it, rank it, talk about the episodes a little bit, choose who our favorite character was in that episode, get some audience questions in about the episode. So obviously, naturally, we are starting with the pilot, followed by Wengidgo. It's season 1, episodes 1 and 2. If at any point you want to interrupt the show, feel free to do so. Send in a super chat. Anything that comes into the channel goes back into the channel. We appreciate the support. And towards the end of the show, if you haven't sent in a super chat, we'll get to fan questions at the end of the show. But this one runs a bit of a more tight ship, this show. So we're recapping 2 episodes, and we intend to do it within the span of about 50 minutes. To an hour max. So, again, if you want to interrupt, send in a super chat. Otherwise, we'll get to your questions at the end. Without further ado, the 2 guys who have made this show possible. So, guys, we have been talking about doing a Supernatural show for a long time. Tommy and I briefly started a couple of podcasts that never really had the footing or necessarily the vision to get going. Then we started to talk about a YouTube show, and I got to tell you, the pandemic happened. We would have been started probably long ago, and now we're sort of starting in this weird place where we intended to start Supernatural Revisited after Supernatural had went off the air. Well, Supernatural has not gone off the air yet, and we're starting Supernatural Revisited. So when we review the newest episodes of Supernatural, the final 7 episodes, it won't be as part of Supernatural Revisited. It'll just be like a Fandom Empire review of the episodes, so that when we do them on Supernatural Revisited a few years from now, it all lines up still. Without further ado, though, first up, Tommy, it's time. We're here. We get to talk Supernatural, and I think that the most fun thing about this is we've been able to convince other people to give Supernatural a shot for the first time. How's it going, man?
It's going pretty darn good. I never envisioned that we would be turning some folks on to Supernatural before this show even started. It's been a few years, but not so many years ago. I remember we began the first of those Supernatural shows we gave a shot, and I came on the first episode. Probably never saw a full episode of the show before. Just you're like, hey, you want to come sit on this with me and give it a shot? I said, sure. Well, why the hell not? Next thing I know, a few days later, I'm giving the show a shot, and I get hooked. And I was later told by someone we are acquainted with that I didn't go through the series too quick, but in less than 6 months, I ran through. It was either 12 seasons, or it was probably 12 seasons. And then I think I've watched 13 onwards live, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it was.
And, it's been a great journey. It really has. It's just unfortunate that things have gone the direction they have. But, with the closures and filming slowing down and all that. But hey, this day here, Supernatural Revisited, we first threw that name out there months ago, pitched the idea. It's a day that's long in the making, and I am thrilled to be here, and that's a long enough intro for me.
All right. Well, you also covered the first question in there, too. So, Johnny, I'll let you do the same during your intro. Just let us know how you got introduced to the series. And, dude, it's finally here. This is going to be a long run. Obviously, this isn't going to produce the viewing numbers that our Halloween content does or our horror content does at the beginning because of the way the YouTube algorithm works. But with time, we hope to convince more of the Fandom Empire fanatics to give Supernatural a shot. Dude, thrilled to be here. Happy to have you.
Oh, man, I'm happy to be here. I'm excited to talk about this show. It's a show I enjoy a great deal. I feel like I'm the senior citizen on this panel, at least as far as Supernatural goes, because I'm a day one original. I've watched this series since I think the first episode I watched fully live was I think it was around halfway through season 1. So not totally day one original, but season 1 original.
Yeah.
I've seen every season finale as they air and premieres, and I'll fall out in the middle of a season and stop watching every week, but then I'll binge towards the back because this is the way I love my TV viewing. I'm a binger. I'm a binger from way back. Ever since PVR has been a thing, I've been a binger, and I enjoy the crap out of this show. It hits on so many of the niches of things that I enjoy. It's a bit darker, so I love it for that. I love the content. The soundtrack is another thing that's a huge part of this series, right? I'm a classic rock guy. Dean's musical interests are my musical interests. Like, I don't think Dean's ever played a song that I haven't gotten into and enjoyed, and I enjoy that part of the series and just everything about it. All of the people that come through, you just it takes a lot for a TV series to get that emotional investment with characters. The closest example I can get is this is the equivalent of our soap operas, for the emotional investment we get in them. I've enjoyed it since day one. I'm excited to talk about it now and going through this, and we're gonna have a good long run talking about this series, and I'm excited and happy to be here for it.
I'm thrilled to be here with the two of you talking about my favorite show ever. For years it was Smallville. Eventually Supernatural took that spot. I don't think I'm ever going to love a show more than Supernatural. So it was actually my ex-wife who was watching it because Smallville would come on and then Supernatural would follow it back then. And I'd be like, yeah, I'm not sticking around for this. I'm going to go play video games or something. And I remember seeing a couple of episodes during season 3, like bits and pieces of it, and thinking, oh, this isn't bad. And I remember not feeling well one day, and I watched the season 4 premiere with her. And it really hooked me, It hooked me because it was a show ballsy enough to attack, biblical topics without necessarily following them to a T and putting more of an entertainment spin on them, yet still remaining partially truthful, at least to what's believed in those areas. That made me go back and start season 1, and just I fell in love, and I've been there since. And again, I don't think there are two actors on any TV series that have more chemistry than the two of these guys. Obviously, a decade and a half will help with that. But these two are just Jensen Ackles, who my son is named after, plays Dean Winchester. Jared Padalecki, Jensen, who plays Dean Winchester, a.k.a. Squirrel, and Jared Padalecki, who plays Sam Winchester, a.k.a. Moose. If you know those terms, you've been following for a long time. So we've talked about our first experience with Supernatural and what it was like, and I want to take a second here. I got a little note written down. As long as it didn't delete like it did last night. Okay, so Supernatural's pilot was directed by, this might be a name some people know, might be a name some people have no idea about, David Nutter. David Nutter also did the pilot for Smallville. David Nutter also did the pilot for Arrow and Flash and several other very successful TV shows. David Nutter is someone that very popular TV shows go to because they think he handles characters well and really getting into the nitty gritty, the real build up of someone's character, and it's sort of what he's good at. You could hear David Nutter interviews on Michael Rosenbaum's Inside of You and so many other places. He's spoken very highly of. I just want to take a moment actually to say our thoughts and prayers are actually with David Nutter. He just lost his wife recently, and that's awful. But I don't know if you guys know this. So in Hollywood, industry standard typically is when you direct the pilot, if the pilot gets picked up, you will receive $5,000 for every additional episode ever in that series. 5,000 USD. Last time I checked, Supernatural is, I think, going to end with 327 episodes. And I don't have a calculator here. I don't know if one of you guys can pull it up. But 5,000 times 327 just off of one series is a pretty impressive feat. I'm pretty sure the numbers, it's at least 5,000. It might be 10. Michael Rosenbaum and him got into it on Inside of You, and it was just mind-blowing.
Well, if you're going off of 5,000, that would be $1,635,000.
And then you have to add in 10 seasons of Smallville and 8 seasons of Arrow. And
I'm not doing all that.
No, I know. But and then Flash went several seasons as well. And it's incredible, the guy's track record with doing a pilot. If you want a show to get picked up, go to David Nutter. I don't know if David Nutter did the pilot for the 100 or not. I don't know off the top of my head. I know there's like a huge list of pilots he's done. Now, Johnny, the show The Doctor, does that have anything to do with Doctor Who?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Okay. So he did that show. There's a bunch of them. It's just a ridiculous list. When you have that sort of track record, it's pretty impressive. Now, obviously, he's added to that track record since then. But it's just absolutely phenomenal. When you hear that, guys, that someone has a track record like that of, successfully directing pilots, for several shows on that level, what comes to mind? Johnny, you first.
It's hard to say for a director because directing is very different. I mean, now if you were to tell me that he was the writer or producer on all of these series, that makes a completely different metric because it's a completely different set of skills. I mean, to be a talented director is completely different from being a talented producer, director.
I mean, just ask George Lucas.
Producer.
I love George, but I mean, it's true.
We're not going there. We are not going there. That's a discussion for a Tuesday night, not a Wednesday night. But it's completely different comparing the two. So I mean, it's certain that he has a specific set of skills, and he's extremely talented as a director. But I think he's an extreme track record of success. There's no doubting that. But I can't personally attribute that success of the series to him.
Oh, no, definitely not. No, yeah, for sure.
So, I mean, as far as being one of the go-to guys for, directing pilots, let's point out one important thing out of that list you gave. That was, 90-some% CW or WB.
Oh, for sure.
Television shows.
For sure.
So, I mean, it's very clear he knows how to direct for a specific audience, and that's the higher-ups at CW, WB.
I'm just talking pilots. Let's not forget David Nutter. His stamp is all over Game of Thrones. Like, he has done some of the biggest Game of Thrones episodes there are, period, across several seasons. I could be wrong, and I might be, so don't quote me here. I think Nutter did the Red Wedding. I know this isn't a Game of Thrones show, and we got plenty of time to go back and revisit Game of Thrones. But, like, the guy's track record is unbelievable. So I do think if you're looking to have a show just get picked up, I'm not saying he's owed everything that's, Supernatural is. In fact, I'm pretty sure he's only directed one episode of Supernatural, and that was the pilot. Could be wrong there, too.
You were correct. It was David Nutter.
Red Wedding? Yeah, no, he did several others, too. Look, the guy is supremely talented. And I do think he's owed, a little bit for getting so many shows picked up for series. It's a, when you want a series picked up, you call David Nutter.
He also did Wendigo, so he did do 2 Supernatural episodes.
Oh, he did Wendigo? So he did the first 2?
He did the first 2.
Oh, wow.
But that's a pretty common occurrence for him. Seems like that's kind of something he does is the first
2 and then takes
episodes.
off?
Yeah.
I mean, that's
cool.
cool.
Or at least he's part of it.
Frank in the chat says, but pilots need to draw an audience, and you're absolutely right, because a pilot, it's make or break. Now, sometimes the network is so kind, they'll be like, you know what? Go back, redo the pilot, we'll try it again. It happened with Sons of Anarchy, it happened with Mayans, it happened with Game of Thrones. I actually think it might have happened with part of the first episode of Smallville. And Toronto Freddy says, how about some love for Kripke? Right off the top, we're going to talk so much about Eric Kripke on this show. It's going to be remarkable. But Kripke had a vision for this show, 5 seasons. He saw that through. And Kripke's the one to thank for bringing in David Nutter. Kripke, look, Supernatural doesn't exist without Kripke. And I was really, really hoping that they would bring him back to do the finale. It just felt right. I don't think they did, and if they did, they're keeping a lid on that one. But we'll see. Anyways, we spent enough time.
Well, before we come off that, I just want to make a point on what you just said to that. I actually disagree that the pilot's the most important. I don't think it is. The second episode is the most important, because as good as a pilot is, if that second episode isn't at least as good or better, you lose so much of your market share that it's ridiculous. If I had a nickel for every pilot I've seen that I watched and I go, damn, this is actually pretty good, and then you watch episode 2 and it's like, what the hell, this isn't really the same show I just watched. So I think episode 2 is more important than the pilot.
I'm on both sides of the fence here. On one side of the fence, I think you're kind of crazy, because without a successful pilot, you're not getting episode 2 under most circumstances. On the other side of the fence, I'm going to show my hand here early. I think episode 2 of Supernatural is considerably better than episode 1. That's just me personally. I
think it's more important from a viewership standpoint. Getting it picked up, yes, that pilot is it is the most important, because without a good pilot, you're not getting picked up. But that second episode, that's the viewers. If you can't carry the day in the ratings, you're not going to stay. You're not going to survive. So that's why I say that the second episode is most important. As for Kripke directing the last episode, I think it is so far removed from the series he created that didn't really make sense to me at this point.
I mean, the series gone on for 15 seasons. He left at 5, right?
It's gone on twice as long as it was while he was there. So I think, it's so far removed from his series that it would be great from a nostalgia standpoint, but not the final episode. I don't think that's his to touch anymore.
I mean, for me personally, and we're gonna have time to recap what are the best seasons in our opinion. And don't get me wrong, I love all the seasons, but I love some of them a lot more than others. I love all the seasons just because I love the show so much. However, to me, Supernatural, when it's at its best, is 1 through 5. When we do our ranking, spoiler alert here, my top 5 seasons, in no particular order, are going to be those first 5 seasons. So... yeah, that's how I feel. Anyways, gentlemen, why don't we dive in to episode number 1, titled Pilot. Alrighty, so episode number 1, directed by David Nutter. They pull in Jared Padalecki, and they pulled him off of the Gilmore Girls, and they pulled in Jensen Ackles directly from Smallville. Jensen Ackles actually had a deal to do season 5 of Smallville as well, CW show as well, so he had some leeway. Went and auditioned, and they left Jensen's character's what was his character's name on Smallville? I should be Jason. That's it. His sort of ending was open ended. Could have been he died. Could have been he lived. Supernatural gets picked up, so he dies. And I believe Gilmore Girls was CW too, was it not?
Yes.
So they stayed with what they knew. They stayed with people that they knew for roles for this show, and it makes sense. So the pilot, maybe initial thoughts here, guys. For me, I like the pilot. It ain't making no top 25 list for me of best Supernatural episodes. It's probably not even making a top 50 list, and that's not a bad thing because I love this show. There's been 300 plus episodes of this show. However, I think the pilot gets one thing in particular right, and that is this very dynamic family relationship, whether it's the brief glimpse we get of the parents or the constant back and forth between Sam and Dean in the episode. I think Nutter and Kripke and company knock it out of the park. The first episode's all about Sam and Dean reuniting, even though we haven't seen them together before. And it's basically two brothers that are in completely different worlds at this point. And yet they do it in a way that keeps you entertained and mesmerized all the way through. Tommy B, send it over to you. Initial thoughts on the pilot, man.
So, out of any Supernatural episode, I've probably watched the pilot the most. And I don't know where I would rank it. Whenever I do go to do a 25 or 50, what have you, ranking of episodes, that's going to be very challenging for me. I will say that Nutter did a fan-freaking-tastic job with setting the characters up. Everyone did a fan-freaking-tastic job setting the characters up, setting the story up. And you, looking back now, revisiting it, if you will,
pun intended.
It's so odd because the world is so much smaller. That's part of the series that just always hits me when you go back to the pilot or season 1 or 2. The whole world is just so much smaller, and it begins to explode a few seasons later. And yeah, it's great, for those of us going back and rewatching. Nostalgia is just out of the world. And perhaps the best line is, we've got work to do.
Oh, for sure.
And, with that, and that's something that a lot of folks have held out hope for that if they were to both live at the season finale, it would end in a similar manner.
Oh, the series finale. Yeah, gotcha.
Excuse me.
Gotcha. Apologies. I think Tommy B might be having some internet issues, guys. I don't know if you're hearing that too, Johnny, a little bit now and then, but we'll fight through it. Johnny, thoughts on the pilot?
It was awesome. It hooked me in, not just in setting the tone of what the series was going to be, but it did an amazing job of establishing the overall storyline while introducing the monster of the week concept. And I enjoyed that a great deal, because I always enjoyed the monster of the week episodes because they kept you going. There was always something moving forward. Even if the main season story didn't really progress very far in each individual episode, there was still a story that kept you interested. So there weren't really any, I don't want to say filler episodes, because they were kind of filler-y, but they weren't filler episodes. Like, I mean, I know you know the difference. It's hard to quantify the difference between a good episode and a filler episode, but there were none of those in the early seasons. But specifically the pilot, it set the tone, and it set the tone in such a way that it shows you that the monsters are important, but the most important thing is the family.
Yep.
The relationship of family, and that's continued growing and growing and growing as the seasons grew on. Eventually you get to the point where you start, family isn't just blood, and that becomes a huge part of the series, and that's something that most people experience in life. There's the family you're born into and the family you choose. Supernatural is probably the only series that makes the family you choose the most important one. That's something I love.
Well, I mean, again, I'm not preaching life philosophy for anybody, but at the end of the day, the family you choose, in my books anyways, ends up being the most important family in your life. The family,
absolutely.
Yeah, the family you choose is your significant other, and that brings on kids and grandkids and whatever. And I think you're spot on, man.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, where Hollywood likes to pay on that, the old-fashioned family, and it just doesn't establish it the same way. I guess at the end of the day, it's about the same thing, but it's not about the same thing. Like, you can't compare the Waltons to the Winchesters. It doesn't work. The
Waltons. Oh God.
The Waltons.
There goes the ratings.
I'm pretty sure that everyone that's watching this is now Googling, the hell are the Waltons? And then they'll be asking, why the hell am I quoting a show from like the 50s? But it's
you really are the old man in this room.
And yet I'm not. I'm the middle child in this room. Sage is the old man by 3 months.
Well, here, let's do this one, guys. There's so much in the pilot. We only have so much time to spend on each episode, and we want to give each episode their due. For me, I want to spend some time talking about what your favorite part of the episode was. It's something we're going to do for each episode, what your favorite part of the episode was. And I'll go first. For me, it's that moment really early on in the episode. Sam and Dean are fighting. Jessica comes out. There's the exchange. Dean's a pig. And Sam's the good kid. And it's kind of remained that way all through the series. And for the most part anyway. And Dean's like, you'll have to excuse us for a second. I got to talk to my brother about some personal family stuff, whatever. And Sam's like, no, if you whatever you have to say, you can say it in front of Jessica. And we get the bit about, Dad's, hasn't been home in a few days, and Sam gives the reasons why he might not be, and then Dean's like, Dad went on a hunting trip and hasn't been home in a few days. And if you're watching the episode for the first time, so you've never seen it before, you're thinking that he's going to, have a retort to that. But instead it's like, yeah, Jessica, you better excuse us. And it's like, oh, oh, shit's getting good. All right, here we go. And I know it's just dialogue, but that dialogue, in my opinion, sets the pace for the rest of the series. Not the show, not the episode, but the series in terms of the topics that we're talking about. Johnny, what was your favorite part of the episode, man?
I mean, normally I would avoid, picking similar moments, but the pilot's kind of devoid of those big moments for the most part. I mean, yes, I could pick other moments like driving the car through the house or any number of things, but for me, the most important, the best moment of the whole episode is the one you just said. That whole sequence from Dean breaking into the house and them having the fight to Dean's establishment as a pig, even though I too enjoy the Smurfs. It's just it's an amazing moment, and you're absolutely right. It sets the tenor of their relationship. I mean, without picking that, I'd have to say it's probably Driver picks the music, shotgun shots is K. Cole. It's a hell of a moment, and my biggest regret is that I was too lazy to get down my Blu-rays and watch that, because streaming it on Amazon Prime, you have the crappy music edits, so you don't get the awesome 80s soundtrack as much, because they're too cheap to pay for the music, and, well, I think they're probably right, considering 90% of the bands in there are actually expensive.
They edit the music out?
Yeah.
Wow,
Well,
I didn't know that.
What the hell is that?
Not out, but they replace it.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
So instead of the first
That's
tape they played, was it not? I mean, it's been a long time since I've watched it originally, but the first tape he plays was an AC/DC?
No, AC/DC happens at like the end of the third episode or so, where they're at the gas station.
It was something relevant.
So
it wasn't something unknown.
I don't know. Wow,
I couldn't place the music in.
I'm gonna have to search that up. That's my.
It could just be me like having replaced it myself because
I hope it is, because that's how I'm doing my watch through here is on Amazon, because I only have the first 4 or 5 seasons on DVD right now, and it's like.
I mean, we'll know as we get into other things. Like, it could just be certain ones that aren't quite so important that they've replaced. Like, they're not going to replace Carry On or any of the finale
that would be it.
ones.
I'd cancel my Prime Video.
Well, I wouldn't go that far because I watch a lot of things on Prime Video, but
you don't take away Carry On, My Wayward Son.
Oh, I don't think they would, regardless of that, because it is so important to the series.
Tommy B, favorite moment, man. I think I might know what it is. I think you already mentioned it, but maybe you'll surprise us.
So it's really a toughie, to be totally honest, because if I was looking at Supernatural in the context of the first couple of seasons, I would look exclusively to the flashback, because that, of course, sets up plot elements that remain relevant for a few seasons. Plot elements that I personally enjoyed and really wished they revisited a little more. Maybe that's going to be the thing for this show. I'm just going to keep using the word revisited, because
that is the name of the show. So
overall, I will go with the "We've Got Work to Do," though.
That's what I figured.
That moment just has a special bit of magic for me, and I don't know when you want to begin that moment, that scene, if you will, if you want to begin it with Jessica burning or what, but that moment definitely holds a bit of magic.
That's number 2 for me. No doubt. Absolutely number 2 for me. Guys, without further... sorry, 1 second here. Without further ado... I'm trying to see what I'm looking at here. Family thing. Without further ado, it's time to rank this episode out of 10. Now, keep in mind, I know some people don't like using decimal points. I strongly encourage it, just because by the time we're done with Supernatural Revisited, and you include countdown episodes and whatnot, we're going to be doing like 350 episodes of this show. So, sorry, I got that backwards. So about half that amount of episodes, about 175. 175 to 200 episodes of this show. I'm going to lead things off. I'm going to give this episode a 6.5 out of 10. Might seem low. I think it's a passing number, a solid number, good enough to get picked up. But it's not one of my favorite Supernatural episodes. Johnny.
Oh, man. I enjoy the episode a great deal, but it's not that good. It's a bit better than average, so I'm gonna give it a 6.7.
Tommy.
I see we're following a similar trend from other times we've rated things before. I'm going to give the show a 7, not because I'm against decimals, because I'm going to have to use decimals in this series. I'm giving it a 7 because this episode, of course, does holds significance for everyone. It holds, maybe I'll say, a special significance to me because I feel that I can't help but look back and just feel how different the series is as it's being laid out, taking its first steps, how it's such a small world where as the world opens up, I can't help but think how much it flops. That's where my mind is currently, so I'm going to give it a 7.
All right, and the second part to this question is, who was the best character in this episode? Tommy, you first.
Dean.
Johnny?
Easily Dean.
I'm going Sam. I love Dean way more than Sam. It's not even... I love Sam, but Dean is by far my favorite. But Sam has so much more emotional range in this episode. He goes from sort of the whiny kid in college to when Dean gets picked up by the cops, it's Sam that goes and visits the dude and is confronting the dude about cheating on his wife and the kids, and he shows that even without Dean, hey, he can get back into the role of a hunter. I just think Sam has way more range than Dean in the pilot. Not to say Dean was bad. Dean's wonderful. I mean, the chemistry is great right off the bat. But for me, it's Sam in episode 1. And that surprises me because more often than not, Dean is going to be over Sam for me, but not in the pilot.
I think you're making a good argument. I don't want to say Dean is very static in the pilot, but he's very much in his early character and doesn't really step out of its confines all that frequently. I just, like a lot of people, just happen to really enjoy that character. So,
absolutely. Well, there you have it. To recap really quickly here, Johnny gives it a 6.7 out of 10. Sean gives it a 6.5 out of 10. And Tommy gives it a 7 out of 10. Johnny and Tommy have Dean as the best character in the episode. I have Sam as the best character in the episode. And that puts a close to Supernatural Episode 1 pilot directed by David Nutter, which brings us to Supernatural Episode 2 Wengidgo, also directed by David Nutter. And we were talking about this off air. If there's any Star Wars fans here, you're going to have to use your imagination a little bit because he looks a lot younger in this episode. But if you've seen the movie Solo, A Star Wars Story, Alden Ehrenreich played Han Solo. Alden Ehrenreich is in this episode as the young kid in the family. For me, guys, Wengidgo, just initial thoughts, it has the vibe of a less corny Friday the 13th movie. That's the vibe I get. It's a very similar setting. I love this episode. I love the fact that you really don't see the Wengidgo till the end. A nod to Jaws there. This episode is full of suspense. And then you also have the ass clown who, I know I just watched the episode today, but I can't remember his name. The one that's taken the family on the search to go find the brother.
His name's Ray.
Ray. So I just love the back and forth between him and Dean. And at one point, Ray actually saves Dean from stepping in a bear trap. But Ray's stupidity gets him killed in the end. I love this episode, guys. Again, feels like a sort of a combination of Friday the 13th and the suspense that Jaws gives you. And I think the boys are sort of at their best in this one. Johnny, how about you?
I mean, I got to agree with you. It introduces some major elements of the series going forward. Of course, I'm referring to John's journal. That plays a huge part in the story going forward, to the point that it's an extremely big prop for fans. I mean, I personally own John's journal. I mean, I'm pretty sure you do as well.
Yep.
So, I mean, obviously fans have come to love the journal and everything about it, and so do I. And it sets the Monster of the Week tone. Whilst, like I said, it just like the pilot, the Monster of the Week is there. It's important. It's really good, while still progressing the main story forward, while being in the background, which is something Supernatural does really well in the early seasons. Progresses the main storyline in the background while giving you the Monster of the Week in the foreground.
Yeah, no, spot on, absolutely. And again, I think sometimes less is more, and in this episode, David Nutter definitely hits on it. Tommy B, how about you, man?
I mean, yeah, you can make the claim that the Woman in White is the beginning of the Monster of the Week. I kind of tend to err slightly away from that because it's the pilot. There's a lot more going on there. You're being introduced to everything for the very first time. I tend to think the Wengidgo is your very first full immersion. But as for the episode overall, while it's a very much an enjoyable episode, I will take the pilot over this episode personally.
Oh, wow! I'm stunned. So shows his cards early on his rank. I mean, I get it. Some people love the pilot just because it's a pilot, right? But kind of what Johnny was saying at the beginning, how the second episode can be more important than the pilot in terms of picking up steam. This episode did it for Supernatural, in my opinion. If the pilot set the pace, Wengidgo's the kick in the ass it gets really early on to show, hey, we're not just the type of show you've seen in the pilot. Which, I mean, there were some minor horror elements in the pilot, where this episode feels, like a horror movie. And I love the way they execute on it. I think it's great. By the way, we have a live chat going on right now. Guys, if you want to let us know what your score would be for the pilot episode before we get too far into Wengidgo, comment in the chat right now. Give us a score out of 10. We'll read it at the end here. So for now, give us a score out of 10 for the pilot. When you're giving your score, just say pilot and then the number. And then if you're giving a score for the Wengidgo episode, say Wengidgo and then the number. We want to know what you guys think as well. Look, at the end of the day, this episode delivers on basically everything you could possibly want it to. I just think it's great. And I love the family element of it too. Not just from Sam and Dean's perspective, but the family that we see, Alden Ehrenreich and his sister, and they're searching for the brother. And, already right off the bat, we're getting into a lot of the lore and the mythology of Supernatural in episode number 2. We see a bit of it in episode number 1, but I don't know about you guys. This one hooked me. This was hook, line, sinker. Loved it. Anybody have anything to add?
Not really. I agree.
All right. Well, with that said, then, where are we here? All right. It's time to talk about our favorite moment of this episode. I went first the last time when it came to favorite moments. Johnny, throwing you under the bus here, man. Favorite moment.
Oh, man. Oof. That's I'd say for me, I think the moment where the sister figures out Dean's full of shit. Because it establishes a lot more of that wit of the Winchester wit. This is the first time we really get a chance to truly see that when dealing with, an innocent. We've seen them dealing with 5-0, and you saw that in the first episode where Dean got arrested, and is there anything real on you? My boots. You know, it's you get that glimpse of how they deal with the cops, but this is the first time you get to see them deal with, an innocent.
Mm-hmm.
And I enjoy that scene because it's mirthful, it's humorous, and it kind of establishes the way the Winchesters are going to deal with innocence.
Yeah, no, I think that's spot on. Tommy, favorite moment of the episode?
It's kind of close. A runner-up for me was the suggestion to use the flare guns. Then in the end, you see Dean use the flare gun to kill the Wengidgo. That's a pretty interesting thing. It's one of those things you don't expect. But overall, what won me about this episode was you see the suspense the Wengidgo causes, the horror elements, if you will, and then you hear that bone crunching when he's having a nice snack.
Yeah, no doubt. For me, it's the I could have already forgotten this. I think it's the Skittles joke, where they're dropping the Skittles everywhere as they're walking through the forest. It's some of that.
How very E.T.
Yeah, it's very comedic. You get an idea during the first episode when Dean makes the Boots retort to the police there that, oh, hey, this show's got some comedy to it. And it continues in episode 2. It offers a little bit of everything. That's what I love about this show. Without further ado, though, gentlemen, it's time to give this episode a score out of 10. Wengidgo, directed by David Nutter. What are you giving it out of 10, Tommy B?
I'm going to give this episode a 6.5 out of 10.
Johnny?
I'm going to go 1 full point higher than the pilot and say 6.7.
That's what you gave the pilot.
7.7, a full point higher. Wengidgo 7.7. This is what happens when you're keeping a spreadsheet and you look at the wrong, square, and it's like, oops.
I'm giving Wengidgo an 8. I think it's fantastic. It really brings you in. And you get more of the Sam and the Dean chemistry, and now you're starting to see Sam a little more invested, obviously, because of what's happened with Jessica, and there's so much back and forth through the episode. And the guest stars, if there's one thing Supernatural does really well, is most time their guest stars are extremely believable. Some shows you watch, it's just like, oh, this guy must have been a nightmare to work with, or oh my God, this girl must have been hell. But with Supernatural, we hear such positive things about so many of the guest stars, which is why they bring them back and reuse them in different roles so often. But now it's time to pick your character of this episode, and for me, it's a no-brainer. It's Dean by a country mile. Johnny?
A country mile, without question, Dean.
And Tommy?
Dean gets it all. He gets the kill. He gets the girl. Gets the jokes.
Yeah.
Gets it all. Now that we're commenting on all this, though, I have a suggestion going forward in this show. We could probably do this. Talk about this a little more detail later. I think we need to make a good effort here to keep track of all of our scores. What do you both think?
I would say I'm
already on
one step ahead of you. So
you're one step ahead of me. You keeping this in a spreadsheet?
Well, no, I hate spreadsheets. It won't be like that. But I've opened a Supernatural revisited file. So,
all right, happy to hear it.
Yeah, no, we're gonna be able to, because at the end of each season, we want to go back and we're gonna do a quick rank of what the best episodes were, and we'll have a little graphic that comes up and what the scores were, and it'll be a lot of fun, and we'll see who the character of choice was that season. But Dean gets the clean sweep in this episode. So we have Kieran, our co-host from the Imperial Remnant podcast. He gives the pilot 7 and Wengidgo 8.5. Wow, that's a very, very high score, Kieran. That's awesome stuff. Jade gives it the pilot 6.5 and Wengidgo 7.5. I'm just going to go over some of the comments we had in the chat here this evening so we can reply to a few of them before we get off air here. Who's that guy on the bottom of the screen? Your haircut is throwing people off, Johnny. Zeno Beats, the show is so fantastic. Sad it's coming to an end. It is, but all good things must come to an end. I do think that it will return at some point. Xenobeats also adds that he doesn't think Mark Shepard's coming back. I'm not necessarily sold on that yet, but
not going to be a huge role, I'll tell you that right now. That's my own prediction, but I do think we stand a good chance of seeing him on screen one last time.
Johnny?
I definitely think there's a very good chance we will see good old Crowley one more time.
Obviously, it makes it a little hard knowing that things didn't end on a good note, and he left the show rather pissed off at the showrunners at that point, not at Jared or Jensen. And when that stuff happens, hopefully time heals wounds, but it doesn't always. Where else were we here? I know Toronto Freddy had one. His best episodes are Yellow Fever, The French Mistake, and Scooby Natural. I don't know if Yellow Fever is one of my favorites, but those other two, they're way up there on my list.
You don't know if Yellow Fever is one of your favorites?
Oh, it's definitely not.
Seriously?
It's not top 25. No.
What?
No. Good episode, but no, not top 25.
I don't know what to say to that other than you're wrong. I think it's probably a top 10. At the least.
God. Oh my God. Well, I honestly can't wait to do some of these countdown episodes because it's going to be really interesting with a series that's had 300 plus episodes. When it's all said and done, 327 episodes, and what makes a top 25 Supernatural episodes on each of our lists. It's going to be fun. There's going to have to be some research done for that one for sure. Without further ado, though. Ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for our first episode of Supernatural Revisited, which you can catch most Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern right here on the Fandom Empire channel. If you know someone who loves Supernatural, or you think you know someone who might love Supernatural, so give it a shot. Let them know about the show that we're doing and Supernatural, the show in general. The SPN family is a big community. You'll start to see numbers on this show go up. I'm positive. And I'm just thrilled to be talking Supernatural with you guys. It's a lot of fun. I think we might take 1 week off a month just to sort of give ourselves a breather. We got so much going on. But look, we're here, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Next week, we got episodes 3 and 4, which, if I'm correct, I think are the Airplane and Bloody Mary. I might be wrong on that, but one of those two.
You are wrong.
What are 3 and 4?
Dead in the Water and Phantom Traveler.
Okay, yeah, Dead in the Water, great episode, and Phantom Traveler.
Bloody Mary is 5.
Yeah. So, oh my
God. You skipped one episode.
There's so many high-quality episodes in this first season. Oh, this show is so fucking amazing. Tommy B, thanks for doing this tonight, man. Where can everybody find you at, dude?
It was great. It was great to finally get on screen and get this project started that we've been anticipating for months now. You can find me hanging around Facebook, all of our groups pages, especially the Fandom Empire Den. If you want to find me on other platforms, Twitter and Instagram, I'm at TommyB1650.
Good shit, my friend. Good shit. Johnny, how about you, man?
You can find me whenever I appear on this channel. Twitter is, well, negligible at best at Fandom_McMahon. Follow it, and then maybe, just maybe, I'll start using it, but it's not likely.
You can find him on Twitter bashing the Montreal Canadiens for having $15 million in goalies.
I think you're confusing our Twitter accounts.
Oh, I see. Anyway, and you can find me at I don't know where, so let's pull it up here. I don't really use my personal Twitter anymore. At Fandom Empire Now, at SW Renegades, and at Star Wars IRB. On Instagram, it's Fandom Empire Now, Camp Haddonfield Podcast, and Star Wars IRB. Gentlemen, this was fun. It was a blast. Short, compacted episodes, but a ton of information. Some good communication from the chat. It was a good night, solid night. Really liked the discussion we had, and we will see you all next week because, as Sam and Dean say, we have work to do.